What's the significance of the 25-year-old law? We're here at Top Rank Vehicle Imports, and we're going to talk to Sean Morris, and he's going to explain to us in detail what it takes to drive a JDM car here in California. You're watching Fast Class.
So the 25-year-old rule or law is actually called the Imported Vehicle Safety Compliance Act of 1988, which is why we call it 25-year law. A little easier to say. This rule exists because people can't do things correctly. So before 1988, you could do personal imports and you would have to bring the car into compliance. There was no real program to make sure that the cars were brought into US specs. And that's the reason that they had to make it more difficult. They had to make it so that there was just registered importers that could actually legally import cars and do the whole program of actually doing the things required to make a car meet a federal motor vehicle safety standard. So when cars are over 25 years old, they're exempt from federal motor vehicle safety standards. So people say, well, what's federal motor vehicle safety standards, or FMVSS? And those are things like headlights, glass, it's things like crash protection, safety standards, seat belts, all those kinds of things are federal motor vehicle safety standards. And the reasons that they exist is obviously consumer protection. Everybody has their own ideas about consumer protection and all the different things, what they should be allowed and not allowed. But when a car is sold, new in the US, a 2020 car needs to meet US 2020 federal motor vehicle safety standards. When a car hits 25 years old, it's exempt from any of the safety requirements, from meeting any of the things. We don't have to change headlights, we don't have to change glass, we don't have to change any of the speedometer clusters in kilometers an hour. Those are all things that they decided that once a vehicle reaches that age, it basically no longer infringes on new car sales, which is where a lot of this is actually, is new car sales. So one of the big things on the 25-year rule is a lot of people say, hey, Mercedes did a lot of the lobbying, or there was a lot of lobbying by the manufacturers, basically to make it more difficult to bring in vehicles that were under 25 years old. That is true, and that's part of the reason why the act was passed, was to basically make it more difficult. But it's more like you just have to have a level playing field. And so the level playing field is that a car that's imported has to meet the same requirements. I believe it was at least partially due to that, and also partially because people were not doing what they said they were going to do to the cars. So definitely there in the 80s, so in the late 80s, there were a lot of vehicles that were imported into the US. Mercedes in particular, that came from Germany to the US and then were not brought into federal motor vehicle safety standards. So if you're in 48 states, you aren't really going to have any problems bringing a car that's 25 years old in and registering it, titling it, doing all the things that you need to do. What's a thing that's kind of complicated for some people is that importation, registration, title are all different things held by different agencies. The thing that's difficult for some people to kind of understand is that importation is handled by one agency, US Customs, and title and registration on a vehicle is held by a different department. So you've got federal requirements, you've got state level requirements. So in an individual state, they handle title and reg. So in each of the 48 states, you generally aren't gonna have any problems. You bring a car in that's over 25 years old, you go to the DMV there, you bring in your paperwork, your title, whatever it is. If you're in California or Hawaii, you're gonna have problems. The thing is that in California, there is an actual path. California does and has set up a method to bring a car that was not originally US or California specs into California requirements. It gets really complicated because the terminology, some people don't use the right terminology. So a gray market car is a car that came in from overseas that was never originally sold in this market. It's like a gray market Kit Kat, right? So a Kit Kat that was sold in Japan and brought to the US, that's gray market. Black market means illegal. That means you're bringing in kidneys and body parts or cocaine, you're bringing in all those things. That's a black market thing. If you're illegally importing cars, that's black market. So all in all, it is actually really difficult to bring a car into California compliance. It is possible. We've been doing it for 20 years. We know what we're doing. But if you want to do it yourself, good luck.